The MWR Financial Edge University live. That's correct, guys. We are live tonight yet again with another segment of our extending services that we are only getting. Welcome into the room. State your name, city and state where you're calling in from, dialing in from. Guys, listen, we're here to change the trajectory of each and every person that we touch with our membership, with this program, with this platform. And you're not going to want to miss this information tonight. We are here. Grab yourself a pen and a pad because we're going to take copious notes on the information that's going to be delivered. But hey, listen, it's not about me. It's about the information that's going to be delivered tonight. But let me bring to you the man that's going to bring to you the man. The gentleman is about to bring on his success is well documented in the industry. He has built teams of tens of thousands from across this great nation. The gentleman knows how to build and build big. His knowledge and experience in the industry has helped propel MWR Financial to be the ultimate cash flow company. And I tell you what, the number one ultimate cash flow company. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome to the live Mr. Adamo Tolton. Mr. Tolton, President of MWR Financial, are you there?
Yes, I am, Daryl. Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for always doing a great job being here, getting us ready for this. And we don't want to have any further ado. So, Daryl, thank you again, as always. Appreciate you. I'm going to let our guests let you know their credentials. But I will tell you, as Brian said, people were blown away this weekend. You're going to be blown away tonight. Our experts truly see exactly what MWR is all about. I don't know why I can't talk tonight, but they have the ability to literally create life-changing habits for you and your family that can be felt through generations. So with that being said, I can't tell you why it's so important for you to be here and have everybody that you love and everybody in your organization on this right now. But I'm about to introduce we're going to call our lead diversified cash flow, or DCA, because that's where, we say PRA. So DCA is what we'll call this. But our lead experts, these are the two experts that have locked arms with us to go really do something special. They've actually joined MWR. That's another powerful thing because they see the power of MWR. So with that being said, I'm going to bring on Edward Pritchard and Ike Manello. Hello, gentlemen. How are you both?
Fantastic.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. Well, I'm going to get out of the way. I've been fumbling and bumbling. I don't know why I can't talk tonight, but I'm going to get out of the way, and I'm going to allow you two to kind of let everybody know what a diversified cash flow account is and why it's so important and what it's going to do for people here at MWR.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, hey, I'm fired up. I mean, like you just said, I was at the conference. I got a chance to not just feel the energy of the people. I got a chance to meet you. I got a chance to meet Brian. And it was definitely a life-changing event and made us even more excited to partner with MWR. So we're excited to roll this out. I'll just introduce myself and my partner. I'm Ike Manello, Edward Pritchett. And I like to say this. So together we have over 750 advisors, done 56 million in premiums last year. We did. I mean, I could just go on and on and on. And the reason I can do that is because my business partner, right? I joke around about this, but for you guys that watch basketball, a while ago, Steph Curry scored 60 points and Draymond Green scored 5 points. And then the next day, Draymond tweeted, we combined for 65 points, right? So that's how I feel whenever I'm with my business partner, Edward. So, Edward, I'll let you say a couple of things before we get started.
Well, thanks, Ike. I don't know if I'm really ready to compare myself to Steph Curry at all, but it's definitely a privilege to be with you all this evening after spending the weekend with Adamo and Brian and the rest of the MWR team and just getting a chance to meet many people in person. I was really blown away. I was sharing with Ike, typically in the financial services sector that we work in, we're doing conferences where we're speaking to other advisors and securities licensed folks and insurance agents. And this was one of the first conferences where I really got to just talk with the people who actually are going to be using these products to change their families' legacies. And to see the receptiveness to wanting to learn about how can I educate myself about what's out there. That's what I'm excited for each of you, is that you have a system like MWR that's empowering you with education, with knowledge. I mean, it's for lack of knowledge, that's why the people perished, right? It wasn't for lack of money. There's plenty of money out there. It wasn't for lack of resources. The resources are out there. It's the lack of the knowledge of how to use those things together. And so I'm excited to bring this diversified cash flow account to you all, to be able to share in that, and to be able to celebrate some amazing wins over the next couple of years. Not like, we're not talking about 10 years in the future that we get to celebrate wins. We're talking about like in the next year and 2 and 3 years, some big wins are going to be able to happen for some people who implement the strategies that we're going to talk about, work with our advisors and experts to really get themselves set up correctly, and then just build and compound on top of that. So as you mentioned, we have a lot of clients all throughout the country that take advantage of different aspects of the products that we use. I've been in this industry now for 15 years, and it took 10 years for me to fully understand and be able to bring what we're talking about with the diversified cash flow account to the table for middle America, because this is something that's typically been reserved for wealthy Americans, where, I mean, it takes hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars to kind of get this thing started. But about 5 years ago, it wasn't just me. Like, it was some mentors of mine that were like, okay, here's how you can make it work for anybody. And they kind of keep this a little bit hidden because they don't want everybody to know about it. But now we're able to really share this in this open format, and empower so many more people to take advantage of this product. So I'm really excited for that. And I know you're going to be able to really explain, because fundamentally you have to be educated and understand why this works. And then once you understand the why, right, when you understand how banks are doing this every single day, then we can talk about how it can work for you. So I'll turn it back over to you, let you jump into the why, and then I can come back and talk about the how. And I'm sure we'll have some questions pop up here and there as we go through. I don't know, there's a whole bunch of comments flowing in. So I don't know if we'll have just question comments, but we'll try to get to as many as we can right now. And I'm sure we'll be able to get back. We're going to be doing a lot of training over the next few months with MWR, a lot of videos that we've already recorded and are going to be released so that you can really understand what this is and the power that it's going to have to allow you to grow your money in multiple ways at the same time. So I'll turn it back over to you, sir.
Absolutely. So want to make sure, first of all, everybody see my screen okay? Edward, good to go?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I want to start out by asking a few questions. I want you to take a minute and read these questions, because what's going to happen whenever you read these questions is there's going to be something that happens inside you. Because when you hear double your cash flow, eliminate debt, self-grow your money like banks, when you hear that, and then you look at the bottom and you see without working harder, changing your lifestyle, or spending any extra money, I want you to notice what happens inside you. Because for most of us, what happens is we start feeling like this is too good to be, and I'll let you finish off the rest. So the reason that's important is because a lot of us have been taught things that for a long period of time we thought was normal. And so I love that this says, because it says, look, it's not what you know that you think is true, it's what you think you know that just isn't so. And so one of the things that we know in this society is there's secrets, okay? And the number one thing that most people in this industry, most people in the world look at as far as the top 1% is, number one, eliminating debt. Number two, maximize savings, liquidity, and leverage your finances. And number three, decreasing taxes. So the top 1%, these are the first three things they look at. Hey, we need to eliminate debt. The 1% does not play with debt. Next, how can we maximize and leverage what we have? And then number three, how can we lower taxes? So the beauty of the diversified cash flow account is all of those things happen in one. So I want to ask you a few questions. Number one, are your dollars going to be worth more than today than they are tomorrow? And when you think about that, there's a purpose behind that question. If we know for sure that the dollar today is not going to be worth as much as it is later, we have to ask ourselves, why are we putting money in vehicles to where we defer that, right? Then we go on to the next question as far as what taxes. Is taxes going to be going up or down? Take a minute and just think about that for a second. If we know for sure, because I think most of you, I can't hear you, but I think most of you would say that you taxes are probably going to be going up. So if we could combine these three things and we take a look at this and we know the taxes are going to be going up in the future, the question I'd ask everybody is, why would we put our money in places to where we defer our taxes if we know we're going to pay taxes at a higher level and get penalized later on? The answer for most of us is that that's just what we've been told. We've been told to put our money in places to where we defer taxes. We've been told these strategies, and sometimes you got to ask yourself, if we're told these strategies, what are the masses doing? Because most people will say, hey, the stock market is bad. But the truth is the stock market isn't really bad. We just have to understand what we're dealing with. You know, the experts will tell you in Wall Street that you're going to get a 7 to 9% return in the stock market. But the truth is, when you look at the fees, when you take out all the fees and everything, the average investor really gets about 4.2% in the stock market, which is okay. So that's the part I want everybody to know. That part is okay if you're going to deal with stocks, as long as you know the risks. So what we're going to be talking about is how to gain that same 4% without any risk and without changing anything you're doing right now. We've all heard compound interest, and I think most of us have applied it or try to apply it in a certain way, whether that's putting money somewhere and just letting it sit. But what we haven't heard is that most of the top 1%, they don't just let money sit. Their goal is to use money and as far as let it compound, but also use it while it compounds. And so we talk about some of these people. These are just some of the people that I'm sure you're familiar with. They've all used a diversified cash flow account. They've used it to let their money compound, but also to use at the same time. So two forms. The reason we talk about diversified is because we can let our money grow in one hand. At the same time, we can have access to our money. Okay. So let's take a minute and talk a little bit about how banks work. And I want you to think about, do you have a bank account? Okay, that's the first thing. Do you have a bank account? For most of us, the answer is yes. Yes, we have a bank account. Why do you have a bank account is the next question. And you're probably thinking, well, that's a silly question, right? We got to have bank accounts, right? Most of us in this world, we have to function with the bank. That is true to a certain level. So I want you to pretend with me for a second. Let's pretend that you found a bank that's going to give you 4% interest. Now, I know what you're thinking right now. What bank gives 4%? Because for most people, banks are giving what in savings? 1%, 0.8%. Let's just say you found a bank that was giving 4%, because this is important to understand how money works. Okay. And you're so excited about this bank that you deposit $100,000 in this bank account. How many people understand that the bank is going to take that same money and they're going to loan it to somebody at 7% to buy a home? That person that buys that home gave that money to the seller makes money, and then the seller deposits money into the bank. And guess what? That bank is going to use their money and they're going to loan out to somebody else to buy a car at 8%. This cycle continues because the car dealer is going to deposit that money in there. Then the money is going to be loaned out at 9%. Then you got the contractor, then you got debt consolidation at 12%. So let's add this up for a second. How much more did the bank make than you? So let's take our 4% minus the 7% the bank made. That's 3%, right? Now we take the 8% minus 4%. That's 4%. We got the 9% minus 4%. That's 5%. So the banks are making this extra money. And so when you total all that together, it comes to 20%. Now, here's the $1 million question. If you made 4% and the bank makes 20%, how much more money did the bank make than you? For most of us, you're looking like, well, listen, I didn't have to go to Yale like Edward Pritchett to understand this. 20 minus 4 is 16. They made 16% more than me. It's actually 500%. Because If you made $4 and the bank makes $20, isn't that 5 times more than you? That's 500%. And for most of us, when you look at that, I know I went through that diagram a little quick. You're probably thinking, I don't know if that's true. There's a company called MWR Financial that studies and gives the statistics on most banks in the United States. Banks make between 400 and 1,300% on the money that you leave in there. Okay. And so you can go to MWR Financial in order to get that information. But the reason that's important is because for most of us, you're thinking, well, of course, well, what can we do about it? That's just how things work. Well, what we're talking about with this diversified cash flow account is a strategy to bypass leaving money in banks and 401ks and different things that defer taxes, and put yourself in a position to do what most banks do. Put yourself in a position, put your money where most banks put their money. So I'll summarize this by saying this. It comes down to 2 strategies, 2 components. Number one, you have to be able to store your money in an area that's going to allow you to have control over it. Okay. That's number one, being able to have control of your money, but also number 2, being able to have it in a place that's safe and liquid. So being able to not just put your money somewhere, because we all agree, hey, I could put my money in this account, but if I'm going to lose it, then there's going to be a challenge. So you want to be able to grow your money, right, with a guaranteed growth, and you want to be able to have access to that money. Okay, and so that's where the diversified cash flow account comes in. And so what we're going to talk about now is more of the uses with the diversified cash flow account and some different examples that come across with that. The DCA is what we're calling it. So Edward.
Yeah. And Ike, I mean, what you were breaking down there is really the fundamentals, like how this works. The ideal that we see with the banks is that they take your dollar and then legally they can take your dollar and loan your dollar out 7 times. That's what a bank charter gives them the right to do, right? That's how they compound and compound and compound. Like they're letting a dollar that you're putting there, they're paying you 4%. Like we know that doesn't exist. I saw some of the comments. There's no banks that are paying 4% right now. I don't. It's just that doesn't exist, right? But they're taking that and then they're able to compound on it multiple times because they're using that same dollar 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, up to 7 times. Now we can't do that. All right. Like unless you go and get a bank charter, like you cannot legally do that. If you try to do that, you will go to jail. The IRS will come after you. They're pretty good at finding those kind of things. But what we're able to do, and this is where Brian was talking about earlier, how this is very similar to the private reserve account that is already being used. The ideal behind the diversified cash flow account, though, is to make sure that there is no variancy in the market. The stock market, as you said earlier, Ike, the stock market is great as long as you know what you're going to get from it. And there's some years you're going to get great things from it. And there's some years where even in a private reserve account, that account's going to have to pay 0 because the stock market or the index that it was tied to was negative. Now, the great thing about the private reserve, you didn't lose anything, right? And that's one of the things we're trying to stop the losses at some point in time. And that's why that is a fantastic account for retirement, for money that I need to use in the future when I have that time. But what can I do for the here and now? Where can I use or set money into account, as those last 2 points that you were making, somewhere that's going to be safe and secure, that's going to store my my capital and allow me to continue to use it while it's continuing to gain income. All right. And so I want to actually jump into the kind of nuts and bolts and give you guys an example, be able to show how, using the snapshot, the financial snapshot that you guys will be filling out, how you guys will be able to share with our experts the different things that you're working on, like what's going on for you right now. And the more detailed, like, we understand that the privacy of, people like to kind of protect their financial privacy, but the more that you can share with us, the more detailed you're going to be able to get as far as an answer to here's how we can use a diversified cash flow account to actually set you up so that the funds that you're putting in, what you're saving right now, what you're wanting to set aside, can be used to do two things. One, it's going to allow you to pay off debt in the here and now, right? So that you can start eliminating debt. One of those first principles that Ike was talking about, that the 1% go after, how can I get rid of debt? And then number two, allow the funds that you're putting in there to continually earn this 4% interest rate. So the interest rate on these accounts is typically between 3 and 5%. And we'll find that out when we're actually going through the process for you, where yours is going to be. But you can get that and get that continually. Actually be able to use that compound in your favor. And then while that capital is sitting there earning that income, you can then borrow against that, find actual leverage, and use those funds to do the other things that you need to do, whether that's paying off debt that's at a much higher interest rate, or as both Brian and Andamo mentioned earlier, use those funds to invest in the things that you want to invest in, whether that's your business, whether that's real estate, whether that's that new home that you've been wanting to get. That's what we're going to be able to show you as we go through this. So are you guys able to see my screen now? Ike, you seeing that clear?
Good to go.
All right. So let's talk about this diversified cash flow account and really what it can do for you. Now, Ike had a couple of questions for you at the beginning. I have a couple more for you. Are you 100% sure you're going to have a great retirement, or do you have some doubts? Now, I think if we ask most people in this country that question, have some doubts is like that's like a light answer to what they would tell you, right? Because most people are going to be dependent on family and friends, Social Security, and a measly little amount that maybe they saved away in a 401k or an IRA that they've deferred the taxes on. And now that they're pulling it out, they're getting that required minimum distribution. They're seeing how much their taxes are now on what they thought they were deferring. All right. So that's one of the things that this policy will help you with. This account will help you with. Now, it will also, just like the private reserve account, if you have both, now you've doubly helped yourself, right? You're being able to take advantage of this thing in two different ways. What if I could show you how to get out of debt in 9 years or less, including your mortgage, without spending any more money than you are today? And that's what we're going to show you, because I think that's the place where we all can say, here's where we can enter into this new game, this new way of looking at our money. Because a lot of people think I have to have, and this is what I thought for many years when I first got into this industry, that you had to have hundreds of thousands of dollars already sitting there to be able to put into an account like this, to be able to start using it. But that's just not true. And that's what I'll be able to show you here with the example of one of our clients here in just a second. Now, we all know debt is just running away. It's rampant, trillions of dollars of auto loan debt, credit card debt, student loan, mortgage debt. More than likely, everybody on this call has some or at least one of these things going on. And that's what policies that we can put into place to fund this diversified cash flow account will allow you to be able to eliminate all of this in a shorter amount of time than you think. Like, I know you guys already have plans to help you get out of debt in a structured way. And what this does is, Brian said steroids and Damo said turbocharge. Either one works. Like, this will help you make that happen that much quicker. So the typical American household, when we're looking at it, and I want to show this because I want to share at the end how we're going to switch this pie chart. Okay. The majority of Americans, they're putting 34% of their dollar that they earn paying interest. Just think about that. 34% paying interest, 40% in taxes. And some people are like, well, look, Edward, I live in a state, we only have a 20% state tax, or, I'm at the 20% federal level and we have no state tax. Well, are you paying sales tax on everything you buy? Your gas, your food, your car, your groceries? Are you paying taxes every time on your property? Are you paying taxes? It's a little insidious. Sometimes you don't think about how much is actually going to taxes. You think it's just the income tax rate and your state tax rate, but it's all the other stuff that gets added on top of that. Okay. So 40% going to taxes. Unfortunately, we can't eliminate that, but we can definitely mitigate it. We're really on 3% on the savings side. I hope that's the case. Unfortunately, what we've really seen is that most Americans are in a negative savings rate status, meaning that they're actually spending more money than they make because they're having to pay the interest, they're having to pay the taxes. They're definitely not cutting back on their lifestyle. And so they're not saving, they're actually borrowing more and getting deeper and deeper in debt. But let's assume that in a good world, people are saving 3% of what they're bringing in. And that really only leaves 23% for lifestyle, your food, the car you drive, the house you live in, like everything that you work so hard for, your 23% of your income is going towards that. And to me, that's absolutely, it's just ridiculous. How can we shift that, right? And that's what we'll show you with a diversified cash flow account, what that can actually look like. So let's talk about one of our clients, Renee and Anthony. And Renee and Anthony, I think they've now been, they were one of our earliest case studies that we did, because we tried to track over a long period of time how our clients use these accounts to really get themselves out of debt. And they started with us almost, I think it's almost 11 years now. I need to go back and actually look at it. I know it was 10 years ago at the end of last year. So I think we're coming up on 11 years. But Renee and Anthony, 38, 36, they're making just a little over $7,000 a month in monthly income. Wanting to retire when they're 65. They want to have $5,000 worth of income. As you can see, they have some kids. 3 of them, they have less than $100,000 in their 401k, no college savings right now. They want to eliminate debt. They want to save for retirement. You know, they want to do the things that most people really want to do when they're kind of evaluating, okay, where do we currently stand? Where are we trying to go? Right. So this is where we're talking about that financial snapshot. The more information that we have, the better we can prepare your game plan for you using this account. We're finding out specifics on their savings and investment. And again, now you can just give us a general number. And when you're talking with one of our experts, they may ask you to break it down a little bit more, because what we're looking for, we're trying to be able to do this without you having to spend any more money than you're currently spending. And so if we can identify inefficient money, so that's money that you're putting into places that is not as efficient as it could be, right? The 401k, that's great because we think we're deferring taxes and you know, it's going to earn that 7-8% return. But as Ike was talking about earlier, that's just not really the case, right? Like that's the education that we're getting. We're learning that that's not really the case. So is there a better place for me to put, can I put that somewhere where if I still do want to invest in the stock market, I can borrow from my diversified cash flow account, go use that and invest in the stock market. I'm earning 4% over here. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but like we can make that money work more effectively for you, right? So the more information that we have as far as what's available there, what are you contributing monthly? Is that available to be reinvested somewhere else? Outstanding debt. Again, you can just give us the total amount, but by breaking it down, we can really get into, okay, where are the most high interest rate debt that you have, where there's some overpayments happening, you know, how can we take care of that? So as you can see with Renee and Anthony, you know, we got Visa, credit cards, medical and dental bills, furniture, auto loans, and of course, the biggest one is the mortgage. And we're going to break down the mortgage here in a second of why it's smart to pay that mortgage off sooner rather than later, okay? So they had average interest of 9.25%, $180,000 in debt that they were working to pay down, and their payment was just over $2,100, just under really $2,200 a month in payments that they were making on that debt. Now, if they continued the way that they were planning on going, 30 years of trying to pay all this stuff off, this is assuming they get no more debt, right? Like they don't go and get another credit card. They don't go buy another car. They don't get any new furniture for the next 30 years. Now, let's be honest, like, is anybody going to do that? Of course not. Like we can say that quickly. No, we're going to get that new car in 2 to 3 years. We're going to get new furniture at some point in time. We're going to take the vacation. We're not going to stay in that house for 30 years. We're actually going to buy a new house every 5 to 7 years, like that's, and start that whole cycle all over again. But if they just stayed with what they were doing for 30 years and paid that $180,000 in debt off, they'd have paid over $199,000 in interest on that debt. All right. So is what they bought really worth the $380,000 total that they're going to be paying of their hard-earned money for those things? Right. And that's money that they're never going to get back. Once they pay that out to that lender has it, and they have no more utility on that money. But we're going to show you how to keep that utility so that you can use your money twice. So let's look at the mortgage real quick, okay? Real cost of interest. Now, if you had a 30-year fixed term mortgage for $300,000, that would be a $1,600 monthly payment if you have a 5% interest rate, which we're getting closer to 5% again, but we're still not back to 5% interest yet. And I know for some of you, you're just like, wait, I thought interest rates are still like 3%. Well, check the news, like it's changed and changed very quickly, right? Like, and that's the scary thing about where interest rates are. Luckily, most people are getting fixed these days. I think people have kind of learned about the whole adjustable rate mortgages, but even those are starting to come back. So what is the actual cost? When do you actually pay 5% interest on that mortgage? Well, let's take a look. So in year one, when you're making your mortgage monthly payment, you're paying $360 each month towards your principal, and $1,250 goes towards interest. So what is the interest rate of that? What interest are you paying that particular year in year one? Well, $1,250 divided by $1,610, which is my payment, is 78%. So 78% of my payment is going towards interest. That's just math, guys. I'm not making this up. I'm not trying to, like, just doing the math. So in year one, 78% of my payment is going towards interest. Does that seem like a 5% interest rate to you? Let's go to year 10. See if it gets any better. Year 10, my principal payment is $564. My interest payment is $1,045. Again, doing the math, $1,045 divided by $1,600, 65% of my payment is going towards interest. And remember, like year 9, it was worse than that. Year 8, year 7, year 6, year 1. All right, let's go to year 20. Year 20, $930 towards principal, $680 in interest. Well, at least more of my payment is going towards principal now, but it's still 42% of my payment is going towards interest. So when do I get to this magical 5% number that the bank told me I was going to pay? Year 30. I actually kept my home longer than 98% of the country keeps their home. And I pay $1,500, $1,532 in principal, and my interest payment is $78. Now I'm actually paying 5% interest, right? The banks front load getting their interest first, and you pay your principal off at the end, very end, right? They're making sure that they get theirs while you're just consistently like paying this monthly payment month after month after month for 30 years. So again, we tell ourselves these stories. I got a 3.25% rate. I got to hold on to that forever. Again, do the math. Do the math. Like, how much is going towards interest? How much is going towards principal? What's your total payment? So how much are you really paying towards that interest rate that particular month of that particular year of this great 3.25% that you have for 30 years? This is why we encourage our clients to use these accounts to pay off their mortgage sooner rather than later, because that's going to save you money. That's going to put more money back in your pocket, so that when you're ready to use that for what you want to, you still have it and the bank doesn't have that money. So the traditional approach for getting out of debt has been, working harder, spend less, save more, which is nice, but most people just don't do it. Refinancing, which that just pushes the ball down the road some. Consolidating, again, pushing the ball down the road, and debt snowball, which is great to debt snowball, but as soon as I pay that debtor, that money is gone and I can never get it back. With a diversified cash flow account, I can pay myself first, who I should pay first, and then pay my debtor, and I still get to keep my dollar. And so we'll talk about exactly how that looks. So when we do your financial snapshot, and we talk about reallocating those inefficient dollars, we're looking at your debt. We're looking at the minimum payment that you have to make. What are you actually paying? Because I know a lot of people are overpaying on debt to try to get it paid down. And we want to redirect those inefficient dollars into an account that we're talking about, so that you can, again, use that dollar twice. So with Renee and Anthony, what we were able to do for them, they were debt-free after 7.8 years, over $122,000 saved on interest. That $2,100 or $2,177 that they were paying per month on debt payments, we moved that into this account, and that is adding to their retirement every single month. All right, so how about that for a boost to your retirement? If you can add an extra $2,000 per month, $24,000 a year to your retirement, and now over the next 30 years, and now they're down to around, again, I got to look at the dates again, 19 or 20 years, but by the end, at just what they've been putting in thus far, and their scheduled payments that they're putting in, they're gonna have over $1 million saved for their retirement in their 30th year with us, that they can then use to fund their retirement in a tax-free way. Because anytime that they're pulling funds from this account, they're not paying taxes on that because it's already their money. The taxes have already been paid. Even on the gain in this policy, the taxes are of no consequence because the IRS sees this as a specific type of qualified account that isn't taxed. All right. So how does this work? So let's break this down. If you had $20,000 and you were going to buy a car, and I don't know what car you can get for just $20,000. So maybe it's not a new car. Maybe this is a slightly used car, but even used cars, you're buying a 2012 for $20,000 these days. But let's say you wanted to buy this car, you have $20,000. First option is you can pay cash for it. Now this makes sense. If I'm trying to eliminate debt, stay out of debt, save up the money and buy. There's a lot of great radio hosts and authors of books that say this is the way you should do it. And I don't entirely disagree with that. If this is a way that you can do it, fantastic. But I've always looked for how can I do it even better? How can I be more efficient with my dollar? What if there's a way to do this and I get to keep my $20,000 and keep the car? All right. So option B, let's say you take $20,000 and we found Ike's Bank that pays 4%. Again, we know it doesn't exist, but let's say we find that bank and we put it into a CD at that bank that pays 4%. And the special thing about this is the bank then allows me to borrow against that CD, but keep the principal there. So I can borrow $20,000. So they give me a CD at 4%. And they say, well, since you have the CD, you're allowed to borrow, $20,000, but we have to charge you 1% more than what we're paying you. Okay. If I was offering 1% loans to you guys right now, put it in the chat. Would anybody take a 1% loan to refinance or consolidate any outstanding debt that they may have, whether that's that Visa at 18% or your mortgage at 5.25%, right? Who would take a 1% loan right now? So this is option B. We put in that $20,000 that we have into a CD. That CD is going to pay me 4%. And then I get to borrow $20,000 from the bank. They're going to charge me 5%. Let's look at the math of what it looks like for option B, okay? So we have the $20,000 sitting in, and let's not call it my bond anymore, but let's call it my diversified cash flow account. I know we've shortened that now to just diversified cash flow account, and we took the CF and just merged it together. So DCA or DCFA, all right? But $20,000 at 4%. Year one, I'm going to make $799 in interest on that. Year two, because this is compounded, it stays there, it makes another 4%. Year two, I make $832. Year three, $865. Year four, $899. Year five, $935. So over a 5-year period of time, I've made $4,333 on the $20,000 that I have sitting there. Okay. But remember, I also borrowed $20,000 at a 5% interest rate that I'm going to pay back to myself. Because by paying it back, I make the money that I have on the other side, on the left-hand side, work more efficiently for me. So I borrow that $20,000 at 5%. Year one, I'm going to pay $848 in interest. Going to keep paying that back. $749 in year two, $555. Year five, I pay $138. So I've paid a total amount of interest of $2,645 over the 5 years. Paid it all off. I have a car that I now own free and clear. And am I net positive or net negative in this transaction? And I think we all can easily see that, right? I made $4,335 or $333 on the left side. On the right side, I paid out $2,645. So I'm net positive over $1,600 in this transaction. Plus, I have this car that it's depreciated. I get it, but I own that free and clear now. I don't owe anybody for that. And my $24,333 gets to still sit there and earn money until I need to go. Maybe I want to buy a new car and I trade in this car, borrow another $20,000 and do this again. But this is how I get my dollar to work twice. And if you can understand this concept right here, if this makes sense to you, then you will understand why our accounts work and how this is how you want to pay off that debt instead of just giving that money to the lender. And let's take a look at it from this standpoint. If you have $5,000 of debt, what's the smartest way to pay it off? Option A, just pay $5,000 in cash and give that cash away. And once it's gone, it's gone. Or option B, put $5,000 into my diversified cash flow account bank, borrow $5,000. There's a 1 percentage point difference between what I'm making and what I'm borrowing. Pay off that debt, which is going to be at a higher interest rate than 1%. Because I dare say no one has a lot of 1% loans or 1% debt that they're holding on to right now. And then pay myself back over time so that my money continues to grow while it's sitting there. I'm paying much less out in interest. And this is how I start to build up and consolidate my capital in a place that grows, whether I'm using it to pay off debt or if I'm not. And I'm getting that consistently every single year. I'm not worried about if the market is up or down. Every single year, I know I'm going to be getting my 3 to 5% plus dividends that might be paid out by the underlying companies that are behind these accounts. So what's the difference? The difference is the average American approaches life in this way. They're spending 34% in interest, 40% in taxes. Over 74% of their dollars going towards that. What we can do with that diversified cash flow account approach is lower the interest to 22%. There's still some that you're going to be paying, but here's the thing. The longer you use it, the lower that number can become. Like if you're self-financing everything in your diversified cash flow account bank, then your interest rate should be more like 1%. So it could be a lot lower than that. But this is what we typically see in a short period of time for most of our clients. We lower taxes by 30% because we're able to stop worrying about deferred taxes in the future. And we can actually start talking about tax-free income in the future, because when we pull money from these accounts, it's a loan to ourselves, so the IRS doesn't see it as income. So that helps us lower our taxes. We're able to increase our lifestyle spend by 10% and increase our savings by 12% because we're saving in our diversified cash flow account. So, I mean, this is it. I mean, that's the core of what we're talking about here. Again, we wanted to share this in a way where you guys could really see what we're talking about, and hopefully start asking the right questions, right? Like I get it. It took me a while. I know how it was when I first heard about infinite banking using index universal life policies. I know what it was like when I first heard about true debt elimination and what participate in whole life policies look like. So these are the underlying policies that fund both what we're talking about as the private reserve account and the diversified cash flow account. Like it took a while for me to understand, okay, how does this actually work? And, what's the math behind it? And we want you to first and foremost be educated as far as what you have. Because if you don't know how your account works, it's going to be hard for you to truly use it in the most fundamental way. So that's part of what we love about what MWR is doing, is that educational piece. They have so much available and they're working with us. We just sent over, I think, Ike, earlier today, we sent on like 6 videos that we're still figuring some of it out, but we're getting everything ready so that you guys are going to be able to take a look, to learn, to understand more. And then as you schedule these appointments with an expert to actually talk with them, what they're going to do is they're going to walk you through these things as well. They're going to answer the questions. They're going to talk, like, we haven't been able to hit on all the benefits that come along with an account like this, right? the underlying structure of this is there's a life insurance policy behind it. So if legacy income, like here's the thing, if something happens to you before you were planning on it, your family's gonna be taken care of in a really amazing way, right? There's things that come in that help you out if you were to become disabled, if you were to have a critical illness. Like there's all these other things too that come along with the fact that you own your bank. And so it always excites me when someone, when that light bulb goes off and they get it, and then they start using it, and then the next thing you know, they're giving you comment like, "Hey, Edward, I think it's time to pay off that one debt that we were talking about. Like, can you take a look at my report? Like, is it time?" "Oh, yeah, it's time." And actually, that we can pay off the next one too, because the policy, it performed better than we were thinking it was going to perform. Like, I love having those conversations. And then whenever you finally get to that point where someone's entirely paid off as far as debt, now the fun happens. Now we get to use the funds in that account to invest and to grow and to find ways to get leverage. Because if I'm making 4% here and I can borrow at 5%, but I can find an investment, and I know Brian and Ndamo are working on those investments for you guys that you guys have, that if that investment pays me 10%, guess what I get to do? Leverage, right? Like, I'm paying 5%, but it's already my money. And they're paying me 4%. So really, I'm only paying 1% for that loan, but I can make 10% over here. I'm making 9% overall, right? Like, that's the cool thing that I get to do with having a diversified cash flow account that allows me to, again, diversify where my cash flow is coming, but make sure that cash flow is always coming in. Like, that's the thing. We don't want to stop that compound interest that's happening year after year after year.
Ladies and gentlemen, tonight you're going to see really a new platform that's launched, and you'll see why this is the crowning jewel, I believe, that helps truly and helps you understand that we make wealth real here. And that is, we're going to launch, if you will, and we're going to talk about our platform, our new platform called Trust My Assets. And we have the expert here that's going to help us do that. In fact, what I want to do, and what, just so you understand, you want to get everybody you can on this platform, because when they hear what's possible, when they hear how the money game is being played, and you either are playing it to win or you're being played by the money game, and the money game is some of the obvious ways they play it. You don't even realize it's happening, but you're played anyway if you don't know. This is going to help you be in the know and help you understand. To me, every single person in MWR, this platform is what they're going to strive to take advantage of. And so I'm excited to be able to bring on the person that's going to be our lead instructor that really heads this. This was an amazing happenstance that normally he would never, ever, he has never, ever allow this to go anywhere to major organizations or companies and things like that, because it's always been passed on through bloodline. But because he not only saw the value and what he could bring to MWR and saw that value, but he saw the value of what MWR brings to its members, and he became a member himself and is building an organization already ranked up to 2-star executive director. But let's talk about our lead expert for Trust My Assets. Let's bring up Mr. Roger Grant.
Hey, Ndamo, how you doing, brother?
Doing outstanding, Roger. I had to tell him that you're out there, you're in the business too, and you saw that, what you saw with MWR. So what you said, I like something you said at the event, something you said to me. You said, now this is my family. MWR is a part of my family. So this information that you're going to kind of share with us, and they'll understand very clearly why this is generally just passed on through bloodlines, but now we are all a part of your bloodline. Is that correct? Is that how we get that information, Roger?
Absolutely, brother. True financial information in this country is not taught. It's passed down, and it's generally passed down within a bloodline, and that's where it stays, right? This weekend or a couple weekends ago in Florida, I got attached to a new bloodline. My bloodline just grew. So my mentor poured into me some things that none of us were ever meant to know, and now it's my job to disseminate that to the rest of the family.
All right. Well, outstanding. Well, I'm going to get out of your way and I'm going to let you do just that, because I think people are absolutely in for some eye-opening, an eye-opening experience tonight. So, Roger, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, Dom. Well, guys, look, if you don't take anything else away from what I'm going to say tonight, I want you to understand that there are two sets of financial information in this country. Two sets. And if you make a certain amount of money, you're privy to one set of information. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get it, but you have a shot at getting it. And everything else is offered to the public, right? So what I want you guys to understand about trust is this. It's how many of you, when you think about a trust, you think about millionaires and billionaires and trust fund babies, right? That's what we think about. As normal people, we're like, what do I need a trust for? I don't have that kind of money. Well, it's not about millionaires and billionaires and trust fund babies. And the person who has very little to lose, you have some things that you've acquired, you can't afford to lose those things. And what a trust does is protects your assets. It controls your assets so that you don't have the liabilities of ownership, right? So it's a guy with a home that has $50,000 worth of equity that he wants to protect that needs a trust. It is the person with, maybe a substantial amount of cash in the bank, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in the bank that you want to protect. And here's why. That millionaire, billionaire, if he loses everything, he's got the contacts and the resources to rebuild it and get it back. The guy who just has his home or just has a bank account with a little bit of money in it can't afford to go get into a car accident and have all of that at risk over something that happened in an instant that was a complete accident. So it's not about just the elite protecting assets. The person who has a little bit that they spent building needs to put in more effort in protecting what you spent your life building. All right, so let me give you a little background on me. I'm not going to give a deep background like I gave at the convention, but I was in the mortgage business for about a decade, right? And in the mortgage business, I managed to start making money in my second year, and the IRS hit me over the head for about $50,000 in taxes, right? My CPA told me what I needed to do to keep the IRS from treating me like that, right? I ended up buying a $650,000 house. I didn't have any kids at the time, right? I ended up getting into an insurance policy that was $1,200, and I ended up buying a Cadillac Escalade that was about $1,100 or $1,200 a month in payment. And I already had a Cadillac Escalade. I did not need a second Cadillac Escalade. I didn't need a 5-bedroom house. I didn't need this monster insurance policy. I didn't need those things. What I needed was to keep the IRS from abusing me and taking what I was building, right? So I did all of those things, right? And then I ended up in a custody battle for my daughter right in the middle of all of this. And that cost me a ton of money. So long story short, I fought through all of this, right? Got everything paid off, got full custody of my daughter. And about 3 months later, the mortgage meltdown happened. And I had nothing left to survive it because I followed that other set, the two sets of information, right? And my CPA was no slouch. When I met him, he had just built a $10 million house in the Silicon Valley. He was no slouch. And he gave me the best information that he had, but it wasn't the best information there was, right? So what I want to do is we're going to jump into a little slideshow presentation. And then we're going to have a conversation about trust, just because I want you guys to become familiar with this conversation, because it's for everyday people. It's not for the elite alone, I should say. So what are we doing here, folks? We're here literally trying to separate ourselves from the masses. That is what MWR Financial does. It takes you from being that person who's allowing the IRS to take too much money out of your check every month to recouping that money, right? To having a good credit score, to living a debt-free life. These are the things that the masses don't do. And so we're already in a place of separating yourself from the masses. So when it comes to this conversation of trust and protecting assets and taxes and things like that, we're going to separate ourselves even further from the masses, right? That's the goal, is to not be them. And here's why. For you Bible believers out there, this is one of my favorite passages of scripture, the narrow and the wide gate. Enter through the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the way is broad that leads to destruction, and there are many who will enter through it. For the gate is small and the way is narrow that leads to life, and there are few who will find it. What that passage of scripture right there is telling me is if the masses are doing it, it's probably wrong. But at bare minimum, we need to think twice about what the masses are doing. What the Bible is telling us, not just spiritually, but in every walk of life, and I'm going to show you this financially, if it's being taught to the masses, we need to be critical thinkers of that type of information. Because there's two sets of information, right? And if this narrow passage is set up for them, what are they doing for the rest of these people to cause them to walk through that wide gate? Now, I'm going to put this, and I'm going to use an example of the 401k and your private reserve account for those who've been with the MWR Financial for any amount of time. We are all taught to get into a 401k or an IRA. Your money's not taxed. It grows tax deferred, and then you pay taxes sometime later, right? Well, let's examine that for a minute. Is the dollar going to be stronger today or sometime in the future? If you're my age, you remember when candy bars cost you $0.25. Now they're like $1.50. So your dollars are always going to be stronger today than they are in the future. So why are we giving up strong dollars today for what we know will be weaker dollars in the future? And then let's talk about taxes. They say you pay the taxes sometime later. Okay. Somebody tell me what the tax rate is going to be in 30 or 40 years. Unless you have a crystal ball, you can't answer that question. But here's what we do know that is a fact. The IRS has been in existence since 1913. The tax rate environment that we are in right now is the third lowest tax rate environment in the history of the IRS. And what we have people doing right now is giving up a known quantity for an unknown quantity and calling that preparing for your future, preparing your retirement. That's not preparing, that's gambling. But this is what the masses have been taught, which is why MWR is teaching you about the private reserve account and the diversified cash flow account that allow you to live a tax-free retirement. This is what MWR is teaching, and here's why they're teaching it. Here's why the company is teaching that. It's because true financial information in this country is not taught, it's passed down. And to show you that, I want to talk a little bit about our HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities. And in the Black community, they are beloved, right? But I'm going to show you how information goes right over our head, and we just don't know the things we don't know, right? John Rockefeller started the United States Board of Education in 1903, and Congress let him do that. And then they had to come back in 1913 and do an investigation into what they let this brother get away with doing, because he controlled the whole educational system. Here are the two things that Rockefeller knew, Rockefeller and Carnegie, I should say. They knew that if they could control the entities that put out information, and if they can control the curriculum of those entities, then they can control behaviors, they can control outcomes, which means they can control a whole country. I want you to hear three things that Rockefeller said. You can look these up. These are Rockefeller quotes. The guy who started the United States Board of Education said these three things. Competition is a sin. Number one, I don't want a nation full of thinkers. I want a nation full of workers. Competition is a sin. I don't want a nation full of thinkers. I want a nation full of workers. And he started the educational system with that in mind. So when we talk about information, for example, the Dewey Decimal System, if you think about it, every developed nation in the world learns the metric system for math. What you're going to see when you look at the presentations on MWR, I lost my slideshow there. There we go. What you're going to see when you see the presentation on the MWR website that I put together for you guys is Dewey and Rockefeller were very close friends. And Rockefeller funded Dewey, teaching the Dewey Decimal System, which is why we learn that, he's controlling that from the grave today. Every other nation learns the metric system. Now, in terms of institutions to put out information, are HBCUs. Most people don't know that Morehouse was Rockefeller's pastor and his business partner. And Spelman was his wife's maiden name. These are two of our most beloved of HBCUs, but we don't understand where they came from. Remember the mindset of the person who started these institutions. I don't want people competing with my businesses. I don't want a nation full of thinkers. I want a nation full of workers. I don't want them thinking. I don't want them competing with me. If they're thinking, they're competing with me. I want them working for my businesses and patronizing my businesses, not competing with me and thinking like me. That's how he started the school system. So this morning I was watching ESPN as I was getting ready to go to a doctor's appointment. And it's Black History Month. And I heard him say something about Spelman College. And I recorded this little clip on my phone that I'm going to share with you guys in a minute. But you may not be able to see or hear it as clearly, so I want to caption it so hopefully you can grasp this. It was talking about Spelman College, had a young lady talking about why she went to an HBCU, right? And I want you to see if you can catch behind her the name on the building behind her where she's standing. If we can play that clip real quick. They tell us everything we need to know in plain sight.
You don't want to miss that. And the ladies of Spelman College continue to bring it as we continue our HBCU virtual tour.
My name is Elizabeth Gowans. I'm a senior history major, food studies minor from Peru, Texas at Spelman College. Going to an HBCU was important to me because I wanted to learn about the multifacetedness of my Blackness and experience true leadership as the student trustee on the Spelman College Board of Trustees and take that out into the world.
Spelman College, the maiden name of Rockefeller's wife, Laura Spelman Rockefeller. And this young lady is talking about HBCUs and her Blackness in front of Rockefeller Hall. I mean, come on, y'all. We just got to pay attention. So, folks, here's what I'm going to tell you. There's two sets of information, but they give us breadcrumbs. Everywhere you look, there's information provided to you. Right there, they're telling you, why would John D. Rockefeller's name be on the Spelman University? It's because he started the university. But the goal is, as we separate ourselves from the masses and we try to win this money game, we have to be critical thinkers of information and process what makes more sense. And that's what MWR is providing to the public, because they're not going to teach it in mass. So guys, here's what the deal is. It's not about how much money you earn or how much money you save. It's about how much money you keep and spend generationally. What I want y'all to really focus on is when we're talking about a trust, we're talking about establishing generational wealth. We can make wealth real today, but can we get it to the next generation and the one after that? Because the Bible says a wise man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. How do we pull that off? Because most of us end up in probate or legal situations that prevent the next generation from inheriting what we spend our life building. Without a trust, it's very difficult to establish any kind of a generational legacy plan. So let's talk about the IRS real quick. The IRS was created in 1913, as I told you guys a little while ago. The other thing that happened in 1913 was the Federal Reserve Bank, which nothing federal about the Federal Reserve, was created in 1913. So once they got their bank in place, then they put their collection agency in place. The IRS is not an informational organization. It's not their job to educate you on how to prevent them from collecting, because that's what they do. They're a collection company, right? So once they got their collection company in place, these are the laws they passed from 1913 to 1916. They passed 4 laws. The income tax law. No, there was not an income tax law in America before 1913. They passed the probate tax law. Almost all of us know somebody whose family's been caught up in probate and their assets eaten away by the court system because they didn't have a succession plan, a legacy plan. They passed the inheritance tax and they passed the estate tax. Now, the other thing that happened in 1913, aside from these laws that they passed, was they created two tax forms in the beginning. Two, a 1040 tax form and a 1041 tax form. 1040 is one that we all know because we've all filed it. Most have never heard of a 1041, and even if you've heard of it, you've not filed that tax form. What they created was a tax form for the informed family and one for everybody else. Two sets of financial information, right? Narrow path, broad path. Everybody knows the 1040, nobody knows the 1041. But here's the point in all of that. The IRS, when you do things the way they're telling us to do it, kind of like 401ks and the IRS, here's what happens. Your money becomes theirs. Yes, I said theirs. In the proper context, not over there, not they are, possession. So we have to be critical thinkers of the information we take in because you want to keep your money. You don't want it to be their money, right? Let's look at the 401ks. If you want to touch your 401k and somebody's popping your hand and charging you 10%, that ain't your money. It's theirs, right? So let's move forward. The elite understand taxes, right? Here's what they really understand. There's two things that the elite really understand. One, they understand which tax form to file and which one not to. And they know how not to be liable for the taxes in the first place. That's it. Nothing real deep. If you can accomplish those two things, you can put yourself in a whole lot better tax position. So we've been talking about information. We've been talking about assets. We've been talking about taxes. I'm going to give you some information about taxes that I'm sure most of you never knew. This is Florida versus United States. United States Supreme Court. It says the income tax system is based upon voluntary compliance, not distraint. I'm going to say that again. The income tax system is based upon voluntary compliance, not distraint, which means you had to opt in and they can't force you to opt in, but nobody ever knew that they were opting in. And most of us don't even know when we opted in. And I'm going to tell you now, when you got your first job and you filled out a W-4 and you agreed for them to take taxes out of your check, you just volunteered. And you can't unvolunteer. You're not getting off the IRS tax rolls once you volunteer to be on them, right? So it's voluntary. It's not by distraint. What else does the court have to say? The word income is not defined in the Internal Revenue Code, U.S. Supreme Court, U.S. versus Ballard. The word income is not defined in the code. Y'all, what do we pay taxes on? How are you going to tax me on something you cannot define in your own tax code? But it gets worse. IRC 26, Internal Revenue Code, Section 26, Title 6201, only provides authority for the secretary to assess the tax, not the income. So hold on. We pay taxes on the income. The IRS is assessing the tax, but they cannot assess in their own handbook. They cannot assess the income, which they cannot even define, but they have us volunteering into a system where they can't define it and they can't assess it. Right. That part. The information that we receive, y'all, we have to be critical thinkers and we got to dive deeper than what they're giving us because they're not going to give us that narrow path. They're going to lead us onto that broad path that ends up in destruction. And that's what happens to us financially. I'm going to read this to you. This is a court case from the, I think it's 1997 in Denver, Colorado, the 10th Circuit Court in Denver, Colorado. Out of that court case came this discovery from the Handbook for Special Agents for the IRS. It says avoidance of taxes is not a criminal offense. I'm going to say that again. Avoidance of taxes is not a criminal offense. You know what is a criminal offense? Evading taxes. Evading and avoidance is not the same thing. When you volunteer for that system and then you just decide, I'm not going to do it anymore, now you're evading. But their handbook says avoiding of taxes is not a criminal offense. Any attempt to reduce, avoid, minimize, or alleviate taxes by legitimate means is permissible. Let's break that down. Reduce, avoid, minimize, or alleviate, right? When the next word say by legitimate means there's a way to legitimately reduce, avoid, minimize, or that last word. What does word alleviate mean? There's a legitimate way to alleviate taxes. How many people ever told you that? Why are we walking around scared of these people? Their own handbook is telling them that they can assess the income, and avoiding tax is not illegal. We just got to understand the language and the systems that are in place with those 2 tax forms that we told you about in the beginning. There's a system that they created to help them avoid the laws that they were passing. Here's what Rockefeller said. This is Nelson Rockefeller, the grandson of John D. Rockefeller, the one whose name was on Spelman's building, right? And Nelson Rockefeller was also the former vice president of the United States of America. And here's what he said. He said, the key to success is to own nothing but control everything. If you listen to Robert Kiyosaki says the difference between rich people and poor people is poor people want to own things, rich people don't want to own anything. But what are they actually saying? How do you pull this off? So I'm going to explain that to you real quick. Then I'm going to give you a quick overview of how we deal with the tax situation. And then we're going to jump into a conversation. So the key to success is to own nothing but control everything. The only way you can have full control over assets with none of the liabilities of ownership is to be a trustee in a true trust contract, an irrevocable, complex trust contract. If you are the trustee, you control those assets, but you have no ownership liability. And that's exactly what Rockefeller is talking about. But he's dropping breadcrumbs. Like I said, they give us information everywhere. We just got to understand the language. My job is to decipher that information, to make the language more clear. So let me show you how that information right there can deal with the tax issue. I'm going to give you an overview of what we do for a business. Let's say we have a profitable business, a single member LLC, just one owner. And the business is pretty profitable. They're doing $500,000 a year. They have 300 in expenses. 200 is left over as profit, taxable liability. The owner of that company is going to give himself a K-1, and he's going to pay personal income tax on that 200,000. He's going to try to write that down with the mortgage and some other incidentals. Going to pay 40, 50, 60 grand in taxes. No way around that, right? So what we do with that business is we have the owner add another member to that LLC as a member, as an owner. And that would be a business trust. And here's why we do what we do. The trust can do 2 things that no company and no person can do. It can either pass on taxable liability to a beneficiary, or it can give 100% of its income to charity. That's it. Those 2 things. It's not real hard. So here's what it looks like. 200,000 in profits. Now the owner sends that on a K-1 to the business trust. The business trust takes that 200 in as income. And now the business trust doesn't want to pay taxes on it, so it distributes that out to the beneficiary, which is a family trust. Now your business just zeroed out. 500 in income, 300 in expenses, 200 passed on the K-1 to the trust, passed to the beneficiary. That leaves 0. You can't get taxes out of 0. Now, the family trust takes in this $200,000 as income. And the family trust has all of its lawful deductions. It may have a mortgage, a couple rental properties. Even putting kids through college can be an expense for the trust. Let's just say the family trust has $100,000 in expenses throughout the course of the year. That still leaves $100,000 of taxable income, right? Well, the family trust can either pay the taxes on that, or the last step in the series of interrelated trusts is a private family foundation. Now, the trust, that 100% tax deductible charitable gift to your own private family is zeroed out. It had 200 in income, 100 in expenses. That last 100 was a 100% tax deductible charitable gift. That leaves 0. There's nothing left to tax. Now that last $100,000 is inside of a tax exempt entity that can invest in anything that is legal and lawful and grow money tax free legally. And all you have to do, you have one major obligation from the foundation. That is, you must give away 5% of what comes in to charitable activities. That could be your church. It could be the Boys and Girls Club, the March of Dimes, a hospital, a university. Doesn't matter where you send it. This is how you take $500,000, let go of $5K, and it really didn't go to the IRS. It went somewhere you wanted it to go, something that you're passionate about. You can only do that by controlling things. And the reason Rockefeller said what he said is there's liabilities to ownership. Anything you own can be taxed to you and taken from you. We just got to understand the language and the systems that they put in place, because you do not have to be a millionaire or billionaire to do what they do.
So, but with that, I'm going to shut up before I steal all his thunder, because I could keep talking about this program, and he's probably going to, if I kept going, he would get on here and go, thanks for having me, Brian, but I don't really have anything else left to say. And I don't think that would ever happen with him. Do you think that would happen?
No, he would still have some more to say.
He would have more to say. He would have more to say. I love it. So, but listen, we're going to pull Indamo and I over to the side, and we're going to bring on our special guest. And again, guys, for those of you that got to meet him in Fort Lauderdale, I know you loved him. Everybody in the room was saying, yeah, baby.
Yeah,
you know, because that's one of his little catchphrases. And I can tell you, it was contagious at that event. Everywhere I went, somebody was saying, yeah, baby. You know, so hopefully we can get him to say it tonight.
Yeah, we have to have everyone give him some yeah babies to bring him out.
Yeah, you got In order for me to bring him up, okay, you have to, in the chat, I want you to put a bunch of yeah babies, okay, in the chat. And to bring up none other than our special guest tonight, our lead instructor for the MWR's Keys to Home Ownership, and our strategic partner with Certified Affordable Housing Providers, and that is none other than Mr. Lou Brown.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah, baby. I love it.
Yeah, there were already a bunch of them coming up in the chat already, and it was so much fun. Yeah, you know, it has been a tagline of mine for over 20 years now. Somebody actually started out in Fort Lauderdale, one of the group leaders down there. He tagged me with that, and ever since then, it just went off like a rocket. Nobody ever forgets it, so it's kind of a cool thing for people to help you remember who it is and all that good stuff. But thank you so much, Brian. I'll tell you what, this is an amazing opportunity that I think we have for all of your folks. And Indamo, this has been just a great thing to get to know you and really be able to offer this to all of your great folks. We have been involved in MWR from our point of view for a while now, and we've been totally blessed by what you are able to do as part of MWR, certainly bringing that to our folks that are already in what we call our Path to Home Ownership program, and definitely have been able to give them the opportunity to improve their credit, improve their lives, improve their cash flow, and everything that you have to offer. So it's been a blessing for us to know you before you knew us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I got to make a quick comment, because you said, yeah, baby, you started saying that about 20 years ago. I just want everybody to know that Austin Powers stole that from you.
Right.
You didn't take it from him. He stole it from you. Okay?
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, I don't think so, but anyway.
Well, listen, Lou, do me a favor. We're going to just have a conversation tonight, and no PowerPoints, none of that stuff. We're just going to have a conversation. We're going to hit on the key points for everybody to understand this program. The first thing I want you to do, Lou, if you would explain to people how your program meets them where they are. I know you have 4 phases, to your process.
So the cool thing is that when my mom, when I was 12 years old, my mom tried to buy a house, and she was turned down for the loan, and she never wanted to talk about it again. And as my world evolved, I was able to buy my first house when I was 18 years old. And in fact, my mom was my first tenant. It was only the 2 of us, no brothers, sisters, cousins, uncles, aunts, grandparents, nobody but just the 2 of us. And home ownership was a big goal, and it was a big dream, and it was a big vision. And it was something that was really, the wind was taken out of her sails. She never wanted to talk about it again. And as things evolved, I realized that real estate was the right path for me. And so buying my first house, my second house, my third house, and on, now over 1,000 real estate transactions later, and helping many, many thousands of real estate investors all across the country know how to purchase real estate. One thing led to another. I started out as a landlord at the rent world. And I said, you know, there's more to life than just landlording. And landlording could be a pain, really, because it's your house instead of the person that's living there. So I said, how do we get on the same side of the table with the folks that are occupying our properties? And I came up with the idea, well, why don't we give them an opportunity to buy that home? So I started out with my rent to own plan, and we would give people a year to buy the house. But what I discovered was people couldn't get it done within a year. And so we were doing extensions. People were losing the opportunity. And I said, you know what? We really need to give them up to 3 years to buy. And then during that time, they can build up their credit. They can build up their down payment. And then I've got the right idea. Well, why don't I just offer to be the bank for them? So then I created another level, and that's our in-house financing program, where we give people the opportunity to eventually end up with home ownership. And not only that, we can be the bank for them. And still, those that get good enough credit and good enough down payment, they can go on to a traditional bank. In fact, I have one closing tomorrow that is our housekeeper that started with us years ago, living in one of our homes. And she's from Hidalgo, Mexico. And she's now buying that home from us tomorrow. And I'm so pleased about that. But, you know, it just goes to show you, when you get with it and stick with it, there is truly a path to home ownership. And in our alliance with you, the keys to home ownership is what we're providing to folks, so that they really have the opportunity to get with us and stick with us through the entire process. So it's, you know, some people will start with us at the rent level. Some people will start at rent to own. Some people will start with in-house financing. And that's all going to be predicated on the amount of down payment they have to work with, number one. And number two, what they can afford on a monthly basis. So given their total household income, then we come up with what they can afford for housing. So those two numbers, it's the big fat number that they can afford with their down payment, and the second number is their total household income. Using those two numbers, we're going to determine which program they fit into. So that's just those two numbers can be used to determine which program that they can qualify for.
Gotcha. Right. And which means they could start at a rent to own or lease option to purchase. They could, then they go up the scale from there on to either owner financing or conventional financing, right? As they're going through it. Now,
and it's all relative to exactly what you guys help them do, which is to improve their credit and improve their take-home pay and give them a path to be able to get on the other side of what most people don't know, which is the proper way to finance their lives.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm going to add to that real quick, Lou, because I think this is one of the things when you and I first actually started talking about this together, we were like, oh my gosh, this is such a perfect marriage because of everything we do and then what you guys are able to do on the back end. And so, but I want you guys, everybody out there, to understand everything we do, especially on the increase side of our program, is designed to help people put people back into a better financial position based on their existing circumstances. Okay, so we can help you increase your cash flow out of your existing income through reducing your taxes, lowering your bills, all the things that we do there, raising your credit scores, which allows you to lower your interest rates, your insurance premiums, your all those things that are affected by credit scores. Our debt elimination program, Eliminate My Debts, where we can help you start accelerating your debt payoff. Okay, all those things which can help you lower your debt to income ratios. All those things work together in order to put you into the best position to qualify for financing. Okay. And there's such a thing as good debt and bad debt. We do these things not so you can go out and get into bad debt, not so you can go buy cars you don't need and run up credit cards and do all this stuff. That's not what it's for. But a home is good debt. A home is good debt because it allows you to build equity. Okay. And so that's what we want to help you accomplish. But all the pieces of the puzzle to get you to that top tier in Lou's program, okay, that top tier to where you either get them financing it for you or conventional financing, our program allows you to work your way up to that. Think about it. You increase your cash flow. What's it do? It allows you to save more for a down payment. Maybe pay off a few debts to lower your debt to income ratios. Your credit scores are being worked on. All these things to get your credit scores back in the best shape possible. All these things are going to position you to be able to own that home. But I love it that they're able to help you start right where you are. Okay. And with the rent to own or the lease option. But go ahead, Dom, you got a question?
No, and I was going to say, and so when you see people not only do that, but also eliminate debt, a lot of times they're eliminating it faster than they ever thought without paying a dime more. And they put themselves in a position where all of a sudden they're able to afford more house because their debt to income ratio has shrunk. So they're able to afford more house. They get excited. And the other big thing that we do, Brian, because we offer an opportunity by simply referring others to this incredible platform, the Ultimate Cash Flow Company, it allows you to create business cash flow that starts to add your income. And next thing you know, you say, I might only be $600 a month away from being able to afford the house I want. And because you lowered my debt, you did all those things that we just talked about on the increase side, but you helped me create, just by referring a few people, you helped me create another $600 in income. Now that puts me in a position to really be able to do one of two things: be able to buy the house that I'm looking for, that I really want, or being able to put myself in a position to get that down payment much faster than I thought possible before the program.
Yeah. And I'm going to add one more thing too, because we talked about the increase portion, but part of that too, guys, is that once you do get into this home, okay, we're going to show you how to pay it off in record time.
Yeah, baby.
Without spending one dime more than what you're spending right now. We're going to show you how to pay that mortgage off in maybe 5 to 9 years with our Trust My Assets, our diversified cash flow account, combined with our Eliminate My Debts program, and maybe get all of your debts paid off. All of them, not just
Debt to wealth.
Okay,
Debt
to wealth program. Okay, so that's awesome. Now, Lou, I got another question for you.
Yeah.
You have some really unique things when it comes to helping people with down payment money.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example. Or I'm not going to give you an example. I'm going to ask you a question. All right. When people are renting to own in your program, does all that money go to the investor or the certified affordable housing provider, or is there some of it that may be used for something else?
Well, here's what's really interesting about our very unique business model is that we do exactly what you said. We take people where they are, and then we work with what they've got. So let's say that somebody comes to us and they got $5,000, but really to be able to get into that home that they can qualify for income wise, let's say that they need $10,000. Well, what we learned is that people want to customize the home anyway. So normally an investor would come in, they'd paint all the walls, they'd make the place look wonderful. And then the buyer comes in and says, well, I'm going to repaint the place anyway, because I want a different color in every room, and I want to choose my own thing, and I want to customize it to me. And so I said, well, why are we wasting this money and this labor cost to paint the house when our new buyer is going to come in and repaint the place anyway? So why don't we give them credit towards their down payment? Now, so what I say that each house has a different fingerprint. In other words, that all houses are not created the same. And the condition of the houses when we find those houses is in a whole variety of things. So when our folks are coming to us, we ask them that question: are you willing to do some all or none of the repairs to the home. Well, it's amazing when they're willing to do some of the repairs. Well, that can include just cleaning. That could include heavy cleaning. That it could include landscaping. That could include roofing, painting, carpentry general. We don't require it at all of people, but we do give them the opportunity to do that because they themselves might be able to do that work, or they might have a family member or a friend that could come in and do that work for them. Well, we're giving them credit towards their down payment. So now I've mentioned one thing, which was cash, and now I mentioned a second thing, which is work for credit, or we call it work for equity. But then there's a third thing. They might have an IRA or a 401k that they could borrow from at, say, 1% interest. That's more money that can come to the table. And then, I call it pancaking, because basically we're building up the amount of down payment that they can have. So they literally could come to us with a limited amount of funds, but with these other items, they could build up their down payment quite radically. The fourth one is friends and family. People want to see people get ahead. They might give them a down payment or some money towards a down payment for them to be able to get into a home. So we get to count that as well. Yeah. And then maybe there is a program, city, county, state funds that could be available as a grant. Well, that's the fifth way. And then the sixth way is perhaps there's a foundation in the area that we can align with to do down payment assistance. And some foundations are owned by companies that actually the people work for the company and they could borrow through that company's foundation. Or there can be advances or gifts from the employer. So that's other money that can come to the table. So we've literally got like 8 different ways that money can come to the table to help our folks get enough squeeze in the game, so to speak, to be able to get to the rent to own or in-house financing level.
Yeah, I love it. There was one that I brought up and I needed to go back to it. While they're paying rent, Lou, I believe a portion of that.
I haven't even gotten to that one yet.
I know. And you covered all the others.
But what's so interesting about what Lou just said, though, Brian, and what I want everyone to hear is that just like he said, all houses have their own fingerprint because they're all different, situations are different. Every person at MWR, we know that their financial situations, like a fingerprint, they're all different. So what you just heard Lou talk about is that if you have a true desire, and it has to be a true desire to follow the program, so that means you're plugging into the MWR services, you're making that work for you, you're following the program and doing exactly what they're asking you to do, that puts you in a position to have a customized situation for you, because your situation may be very different from your friend's situation who's coming through MWR. You're doing 2 different plans, but you ultimately have the same goal and you end up in the same place as homeowners. So Lou, I love that.
Yes. And one of the comments I just saw down below is, wow, you get to rent the house and you still have a plan. And that is exactly the correct way to look at this. Now, at the rent level, we don't give any credits. But at the rent to own level, as Brian is pointing out, there's one more benefit that we help to build up the down payment. So not only what I was talking about earlier is the money that comes to the table, let's call that move-in money. But while you're living with us, when you pay on time and take care of minor repairs on the property, then you're earning a credit towards your purchase of the home. And so generally speaking, that's about $100 a month that's adding to your down payment when you exercise your option to buy the property. Now, that exercise of the option to purchase the property, remember, you've got up to 3 years. So you're not required to wait the full 3 years. Anytime during that 3-year period, which, my goodness, with the benefit of the tax aspect of what MWR has to offer, then they're helping people to get a nice big fat refund. Well, that refund can be used for down payment money as well. Now, you imagine that you've got that money coming, and then you're doing your work for equity credits. You move into the home while you're living there. You pay on time and take care of minor maintenance on the property, those 2 things. And guess what? You're earning $100 a month every month that you're paying on time and taking care of the property. And that's building up your down payment. So the down payment you already have and you've already given, that's going to be a credit towards moving up the path to home ownership, plus being responsible around paying rent on time definitely pays you to do that. So when the whole goal is to get you moved up to that in-house financing level. And at that level, we're providing you long-term financing. And while you're at that level, you can build up your credit again, you can build up down payment again, and you could actually move on to generalized, traditional, conventional financing at any time that you want to. So you're not restricted on a timeline. If you want to move fast, we want to move fast. If you have to move slow, we're fine with that, as long as you take care of what you agreed to do.
I love it. I love it. And I'm going to correct you on one thing, Lou. I know you're used to talking to the general public, and I know you already know this with our program, but when you mention refund, we don't like refunds. And the reason we don't like
refunds, to get them ahead of time.
Yeah, hold on. Means, again, fund means money, and that just means you got your money back again. Okay. We want them to get that every single month. That's why we do our instant pay raise program, and which averages about, and I'm going to point this out for a reason, not to correct you, I was just saying this, but that instant pay raise typically averages about $300 to $600 or more per month in an increase in cash flow for our members immediately, which offsets or eliminates the cost of their membership. But more importantly, it frees up additional cash flow that, again, if you're looking to buy a home, you now have that additional money coming in that's going to help you save towards that down payment that you need. Exactly, and you didn't have to do anything extra for it.
Right.
And, that's one of the things that we do talk with folks about, is the fact that when their money is suppressed, right, their money is taken, it's money that's not available to make their monthly payments, their monthly responsibilities on their house and their car. So imagine that they've got that extra money in their pocket. Well, I can assure you that we love that, because we don't want people to struggle to make their monthly payment at all.
Yeah.
Well, Lou, isn't that one of the big reasons? Like you said, you knew us before we knew you, because you saw the value of what the MWR membership was doing on our increased portion of our membership, increasing cash flow, that it now was leading them down the path. And now that we've kind of strategically have come together, we can accelerate that path and keep everybody in a very systematic way that they can ensure that they can kind of move things up to where they ultimately, like you said, they either have the in-house financing or they have traditional financing, because all these things improved in their life and their mindset about their money has improved. So then they get to be very, very strategic in everything they do.
Well, and Damo, you nailed it exactly right. And that's what's so exciting about working with you. Obviously, what we were bringing people in for was to get, because people were coming to us through real estate agents, mortgage brokers, and just the public coming to us. We're looking at their credit and going, ay. Well, the next step for you is you need to get your financial house in order. And that's when we referred them on to MWR, because we knew that is the next step really in the process. Maybe we can move somebody in, but ultimately they've got to get their act together to get their financial house together in order to be able to buy that house. So certainly it's a great alliance. We really do appreciate it.
And because those people are all surrounded by experts, they move forward instead of getting stuck, because the experts are helping direct them in a positive way. And obviously you being one of them. And that's the ingenious thing that our great CEO and founder, Mr. Brian House, has put together to make that all happen and fit perfectly.
It's a beautiful thing. Well, when we first talked, and there was quite a few people that were saying, you guys need to talk. And they were arranging things, and God was aligning, and the whole thing was working together. And I sent Brian my books. I said, Brian, I just need you to take a look at these books. And I was just so happy and pleased that I could get those in his hands so he could see what we are up to and what we've been up to for quite a while now, and how we can really be a blessing to all your folks as well.
I love it. I love it. Listen, I want to do something real quick because we're seeing a lot of things and I've seen some questions come up. I want to go through real quick, Lou, the process that people are going to go through when it comes to getting involved with the keys to home ownership. And I want to make sure I cover this now. The first thing, guys, is when you see this go live in your back office, okay, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to complete a questionnaire, okay? And this questionnaire is going to have some information on it that Lou and his staff needs in order to be able to perform an analysis for you, okay? And along with your credit reports. Guys, you're going to need your credit report through MWRsmartcredit.com with all three of your scores. Most of you will already have that if you're participating in our credit program. You'll already have your MWRsmartcredit.com credit reports with your credit scores, because when they go through and they do the analysis and you actually schedule a consultation, you're going to schedule a consultation. And when you have that consultation, you're going to need to provide a copy of that credit report along with what was submitted on the questionnaire so that these experts can properly analyze your existing financial position and determine, one, how much of a house you can afford based on the income you have versus your debt, okay, versus your debt to income ratios. We're looking at that, okay, and they'll be able to determine how much of a monthly payment you can afford. All right. At that point, what I'm going to tell you is that once they determine that amount, and Lou, you correct me if I'm wrong on any of this stuff, but what will happen is you, along with, okay, your certified affordable housing expert or provider, are going to locate a home in your area collectively. You get to help with the process, okay, and locate a home in that price range that you qualify for, okay? So you're going to be locating a home, and preferably something a little lower than that price range if you can, because there may be some things that you can do to help increase the value of it as well before you get in there with the work for credit program that Lou was talking about. Then, okay, once that happens, you're going to either start renting, depending on where you're at, renting to own, okay, whatever level you fall in, they will determine where you're at, and you'll be working towards getting to the point that you're going to either have that financed by your certified affordable housing provider, or you're going to get conventional financing, okay? Now, through that process, you're saving, you're working on getting your credit restored with MWR. You're working on getting your debt to income ratios. You're getting your financial house in order. You're increasing your cash flow. We're doing all these things for you to put you in the best position possible. So anytime during that rent to own period or up to 36 months, all right, you have the option to be able to go ahead and purchase the home. Okay, so I want you to realize that. Again, if after that 36 months you can't qualify, but you've made all your rent payments on time, you have built up equity, you have saved a down payment, okay, guess what? Your certified affordable housing provider will owner finance the property for you. I think that is a beautiful thing to where now you can start building equity, even if a bank told you no. Yes. Even if a bank told you no.
That's correct. I'm even shocked sometimes when people come to us and they're willing, even though they've been scammed in the past, they're willing to give us a chance. And I feel heartened by that because they can actually see through it. They can see that, hey, we're genuine, we're real. This is actually going to work out this time. So I just want to say that is a requirement. Our folks that become certified affordable housing providers do have to accept our mission. Our mission is to transform lives through affordable housing, to empower families and individuals to enjoy the American dream of home ownership. So that's number one. They have to adopt our mission. Number two, they have to adopt our code of ethics. So all of our folks are under that same code of ethics and can lose their certification, which we provide to them as some serious training they have to go through and testing to become certified affordable housing providers. So it's not playtime. It's not, here, let me write you a check and I become certified. It does not work that way. They have to go through 6 days of training plus testing to become a certified affordable housing provider. And then only the folks that are going to be working with MWR, they're also going to be, they're coaching clients of ours as well. So they're going to be supported through our upper echelon to make sure that everyone gets taken well taken care of.
Well, you know what I think we need to do, Brian? That is absolutely awesome. See, that ongoing training is the key. The ongoing support that they're going to get is a huge key. So understand, everyone, you're hearing it now, but here's what we want to do. We want to leave Lou feeling incredibly, he's already, he feels good, but we want him feeling amazing. So put the yeah baby with some fires emojis, put that in the chat now. Light it up, light it up, light it up. Let him feel it. Thank you so much, Lou. We appreciate you big time.
Yes, thank you, Lou.
Adamo, thank you, Brian. I just appreciate it, and let me know what I can do to help, and we're gonna set this thing on fire, baby.
I love it. All right, guys. Hey, on that note, we're gonna end this live, but thank you so much for being here. We're getting ready to. Hey, our next program that we're gonna be talking about is Manage My Trades. Manage My Trades. Currency trading done for you. And so we'll be talking about that on March 9th.
Right.
March 9th is when we'll be talking about that. All right. Perfect. So, but thank you guys for being here. Appreciate it. Share this with everybody you know. And guys, get ready. When we launch this, I already see plenty of people, Lou, that said, I got my $50.
Right.
Yeah, baby. So, ready.